Hello and welcome to Bingewatch, the podcast where we take a look at the hottest new TV and film releases on streaming television platforms. I'm Hannah Fernando, the group editor of Woman and Home magazine.
And I'm Ian McEwan, writer on TV and Satellite Week, TV Times and What's on TV magazines. And today we're looking at the new releases that will be available on Friday the 6th of March 2026, including steamy Netflix campus romance Vladimir and Guy Ritchie's Prime Video crime caper, Young Sherlock.
And we'll also be checking out Paramount Western spin-off Marshals, a Yellowstone story, and BBC documentary series Hostage, about the Islamic State kidnapping of a British photographer and US journalist in Syria back in 2012. But first, Ian, what's in the news?
Prime Video's The Assassin, starring Keely Hawes and Freddie Highmore as a contract killer and her son, which we loved. Well, that will return for a second series. What else is in the news, Hannah?
Well, Robert Carlyle is joining the cast of crime drama Line of Duty for next year's 7th season.
Wow, look forward to that. Well, we've got some good stuff for you this week. We are going to start on Paramount Plus with yet another Yellowstone spin-off. This one's called Marshals, a Yellowstone story. And here's a clip.
You want to tell me why there's a Dutton dropping bodies for this unit?
What's the issue?
Marshals uphold the law. The Duttons have been it.
I sold the ranch thinking I was choosing the best path for my family. No matter where I go, I end up on the wrong side of the fence.
Violence has a way of finding the Duttons.
You're the only person I know who can bridge the gap between the res and ranchers.
So you'd be happy we're supporting the res?
Things have a tendency to escalate when I get involved.
Yeah, I've lost track of how many Yellowstone spin-offs there have been, but it's quite a lot. A lot of them have been sort of going back in time, haven't they? But yeah, this carries on from the original, which starred Kevin Costner before they parted company. The Yellowstone universe is about the Dutton family, who are Montana ranchers. Okay, and Kevin Costner was like the patriarch. And in this series, we're focusing on his youngest son, Case, who is a former Navy SEAL. He's a widower. He was married to a Native American woman. And yeah, the Yellowstone story has been about sort of the battle for land and resources, and there's a Native American reservation, and there's politics going on, and family rivalries and issues and romances and all sorts. Case, and he's sort of living the quiet life on his ranch, when one of his old army buddies turns up and asks for his help. He's a US Marshal, and asks for his help tracking down some guys who've been preying on women from the reservation. So obviously Case is, this is an issue close to his heart. So he does help them out. Yeah, pretty quickly, he's made the decision that he wants to be a US Marshal. So, I mean, I haven't really kept track of Yellowstone, but I think we particularly like the character of Kelly Riley in the original English actor. Really good. With this one, I sort of found the characters of the US Marshals a little bit one-dimensional. His sort of new colleagues, there's a lot of banter. The stuff on the reservation, I think, is interesting, but it seems like it's going to be quite procedural in that, I guess, in every episode, the US Marshals will have a job to do and he'll be part of it. So, and he's quite a sort of taciturn, kind of miserable figure, Case. He doesn't really want to hang out with his new colleagues, and he's got a difficult relationship with his son. I don't know, really. Maybe for Yellowstone fans, it will deliver. I think it is. You probably can start watching this one without knowing all about the Yellowstone backstory, I guess. But yeah, I think it was reasonably well done, but I didn't particularly feel inclined to carry on with the rest of it. What did you think, Hannah?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I can't believe, this amount of kind of spin-offs have happened, really. But if you're a massive I think you're right. You don't need to see before, but I think ideally you would be a Yellowstone fan to want to watch this. And I think that I think at some point, I don't know if you feel the same, but at some point it feels like you're just rinsing a franchise. And I wonder if that's got to the point with this one, because it's just a bit meh, isn't it? There's nothing stand out about it. Like you're saying, you know, there were actors in the original that really stood out, and you're like, yeah, I love this. This is really different. This scene was great. You know, that it sort of climaxed over here. With this, it just feels like as I say, a rinsing of a franchise. And I don't know. I suppose only the ratings will show, and they'll keep doing it until that sort of drops off. But I kind of feel like it's almost a disservice to the original sometimes. And I think we've sort of got to that point with this.
Okay, fair enough. Well, now for something completely different, as they say over on Prime Video, we have a new period crime drama called Young Sherlock. And here's a clip.
Larceny. It's leaving. Those days are surely behind me. I'm in Oxford now.
You have to promise me something.
Anything, Mother.
Stay out of trouble.
Sherlock Holmes.
James Moriarty.
Sherlock is making friends.
Sherlock never made any friends. What game are we playing today?
What game would you like to play?
Yes, Prime Video. You know I'm a bit of a fan of this platform. So this is 8 episodes. Young Sherlock, and it's directed by Guy Ritchie. Now, before these podcasts, I try not to read other people's reviews before I sort of have a look at it myself, because sometimes it can create that unconscious bias, can't it? But I wanted to with this because Guy Ritchie does have a certain thing that he does, doesn't it? You kind of know that it's a Guy Ritchie directive, and you do with this too. You know, it does have that kind of those punch ups and the kind of oys and the shouting across the room and the flat caps and, you know, everything that goes with what you associate with a Guy Ritchie film. However, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because I think the things that he directs are really very, very good, and you know, they're brilliant actually. And in this is we see Sherlock Holmes, kind of the original. So we're going back in time. We're going to the 1870s England, and they're reimagining this character. And so I suppose if you're a big fan, this maybe is part of the jigsaw puzzle, I guess. And I also think it will be interesting for a lot of people watching this as to whether their imagination imagined that a young Sherlock Holmes would be like this in comparison to kind of where we end up. So he's fairly unruly. He's played by Hero Fiennes Tiffin. Anyway, he plays the part, and you see him heading off to university. And one thing I really like about this is the script. I think the narrative is for me is really, really good. He's a really cocky, articulate person, privileged, but he's got an older brother who wants to just keep him on the straight and narrow. And he thinks he's heading off to Oxford University, the greatest place for education, of course. He thinks he's going to learn, but he's not, and he turns up and he's given this pinny, and he needs to go and, as they call it, clean the shitter, and that's how it starts. Am I allowed to say that on this podcast? Maybe not. I've said it. I've done it. I've gone and done it. I've only gone there. And so you see him as a character, as a youngster, growing into the person that we now know. And he's naughty. He's off the rails. And the idea of this is to keep him on the rails and to keep him but of course, there's the girl that turns up, the moneyed girl. He gets himself into all sorts of trouble, and serious trouble with the law. And you see all of that play out. I personally, but I found it really engaging, actually. I really enjoyed this. As I say, if you are a big fan, will this live up to your imagination? Did you imagine what he was like as a youngster? I don't know. But I thought it was really good. It has all the brilliance of a Guy Ritchie directorship, and lots of action. And a really good script, I thought. What did you think, Ian?
I enjoyed episode 1. Yeah, I think you're right. I think people can be a bit sniffy about Guy Ritchie's work, but it's always entertaining. And of course, he's previously directed a Sherlock Holmes film, hasn't he, with Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law. There is a film about Sherlock Holmes during his school days, which is pretty good. I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, this one. It's very Guy Ritchie, you can't deny it. And yeah, it starts, Sherlock's in prison and Mycroft gets him out of prison and sends him off to Oxford to work as, I think they call it, a scout. So he's basically kind of skivvying for the students and the professors. You've got Joseph Fiennes, his uncle. You've got Colin Firth as Sir Bucephalus Hodge. He's great in this. And Hero finds Tiffin. Posh people do give their kids strange names, don't they? But and then you've also got Donald Finn as Moriarty, of course, who ended up being Sherlock's nemesis in later life. And I gotta say, he practically blows everyone else off screen because he's so good in this. He's hugely charismatic. So it's real kind of crash bang wallop stuff. This Chinese princess arrives at Oxford and she has these precious scrolls, which of course are then stolen, although suspicion initially falls on Sherlock because he has the keys to the place where they were being kept. Yes, it's up to him and Moriarty to solve the crime. So I think if you're a fan of the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock, which was quite cerebral and quite understated, I guess, in some ways, this is a very different kettle of fish. But I did get carried along by the sort of the action, although occasionally I thought this doesn't seem as sort of, for a Sherlock mystery, as complex as you might like. But yeah, I thought it was perfectly enjoyable. You've also got Natasha McAlone as Sherlock's mum, and we see a flashback to a tragedy that happened when Sherlock was a little lad. So yeah, I think it's enjoyable. If you're a die-hard Sherlock Holmes fan, purist, you might not be quite so keen, but yeah, there's plenty in there to keep you royally entertained. Over on BBC iPlayer, we have a 3-part documentary series called Hostage. And here's a clip.
John Cantley's story is the story of a very complicated, intelligent and driven man, and a very controversial figure. I didn't like John Cantley. That didn't mean that I didn't grow to like what I knew of him as I investigated him. There's a mythology that's been built around John Cantley. It's very heart of darkness. He's gone down the river and no one knows what happened to him.
This is a fascinating series, and of course we're seeing quite a lot of war correspondence on TV at the moment, aren't we, unfortunately? And it's the story of this guy called John Cantley, who was a British photojournalist, and he was taken hostage by ISIS in Syria in 2012. Okay, so episode 1, which is the only one I've watched, just starts off telling his story, and it becomes immediately apparent that he's not universally liked. He's like a freelance photographer, but he just loves being on the front line in conflicts, and he just seems to be incredibly reckless, and he almost wants to either get shot or taken prisoner. So you can kind of tell that this isn't going to end very well. And he is captured when he goes into a house full of jihadists, but he's rescued. Okay, but undeterred, and this makes him a bit of a celebrity, and he's appearing on telly quite a lot back in the UK. But he is just desperate to go back to Syria against all advice. And you hear a lot from this guy, Mustafa Corelli, who was like his fixer in Syria, who was a witness to everything that happened. Yeah, so you can kind of see what's coming. So yeah, he and Foley do get captured by Islamic State, and people probably know that Foley was executed tragically, and people speak so warmly of him. He was an incredibly charismatic guy. You hear from other war reporters and photographers, and they're such interesting characters. You think, well, what would possess someone to put themselves in harm's way and to go to these real trouble spots? And occasionally there are people like Cantley for whom it's just like a real buzz. It's almost like a sort of addiction. So I learnt a lot about the job, and also about the political background and about the conflict. It's fascinating, and I think that episodes 2 and 3 are going to be about what happened to him when he was a prisoner, which included being used to make those propaganda videos where he's all dressed in the orange jumpsuit and he's been given stuff to say about the West. So this is a really high quality piece of documentary making about a fascinating subject, and interestingly, none of Cantley's family wanted to be involved in the making of this, which they make clear on screen. So recommended. What did you think, Hannah?
I completely agree with you. You kind of ask the question, don't you, which is, why would you do this? But it's like a drug to them. I think that there's a real it must be an adrenaline rush, but I think the timing of this is quite pertinent given what's going on in the world at the moment, and this sort of strict policy at this time, certainly in 2012, not to negotiate with terrorists, which is a hard line, but is a line that most governments will take, isn't it? And that sort of that brutal murder, and how do you ever get over that as a family, and knowing that those final moments were like that? And you also ask the question, I always think, even in recent times, you look at the news and someone that was sat behind a desk in London or wherever they're broadcasting from, and they're suddenly in the territory and they're over there and there's bombs going off all around them, and it must be that must be adrenaline rush. It must be a reason you've done it, but it's absolutely terrifying. And this gives you an insight into that a bit, doesn't it? Really, and I just find it really interesting because it's real, it's true. As you say, one of the families doesn't want to be involved in it. I would think it's just too raw, too upsetting. It's a box that needs to be shut, I'd imagine. And probably, there'll be ways that they think this could have maybe stopped or not happened. But this is just a reality of reporting in these territories when these things happen, and it's a negotiation tool for the other party. So it's really sad. There's no way there's no way of dressing it up. It's really sad. But if you want something that really sort of scratches beneath the surface, you've got it in spades with this. You really see everything as it is. And as I say, right now it feels even more pertinent, I think.
Well, we're going to finish on Netflix with a new comedy drama series called Vladimir. And here's a clip.
It's come to my attention that I've just lost the ability to captivate. Where are you going?
A friend.
It's like my husband and my students.
I don't understand that at all.
Even my daughter. Stop! Find my entire personhood useless. Is there an extra chair?
2 more volunteers for
Truly, what is more embarrassing?
Hey, excuse me. Take mine.
Have you met Vladimir Vladinsky?
A twist.
Well, if anyone is a fan of One Day's Leo Wooddall, then they will love this, because Leo Wooddall is topless quite a lot in it and looks rather good, particularly when he jumps out of the swimming pool. But anyway, I digress, because this is a new Netflix comedy drama, and it has that I say random, it does kind of work, but you know when the character suddenly talks to the camera, so they don't just sort of, they're interacting within the show, obviously, in the program and talking to someone, and then they'll look at the camera and then they'll give their emotion. And it's kind of like, there's one moment where I think he's wiping some dust from her hair, the main characters, and she just she just looks directly at the camera and says what she feels about it. So essentially, let me go back to the start of this because I got completely head turned by Leo, to be honest with you. This is all about two literature professors. They're a couple. They have an open marriage. I mean, there's lots of people that have open marriages. It's just odd to me, but everything's fine if that's what you want to do. But in this, you kind of see the nuances of that and kind of the difficulties of that. And their marriage is strong, it seems. M, as she's called, she works at this New York college, and her husband John, as I say, they've got an open. He's a poetry lecturer. He seems older in this, and it all seems kind of fine between them, very strong. They've got a daughter. But then it comes out, he gets suspended because it comes out that he has been always accused of having relationships with some of the students. And so this causes a huge amount of pressure on their relationship, obviously. And then there's an argument over the dinner table, and the daughter hears about it, so it causes even more trouble. Meanwhile, this new chap starts called Vladimir, played by Leo, and she becomes completely obsessed with him. So it's and you see that dynamic, and what that, I suppose in a way that's her coping strategy for everything else that's going on at home. He's married though. He's married to a woman called Cynthia, and they have a young child. But her character's just got this. She's just utterly and truly and completely obsessed with him. And so you go on that journey. I have to say, it's a bit different. There's no real, I wouldn't say there's any real huge depth to this, but from what I've seen so far, I really quite enjoyed it. I really liked the sort of the idea of turning to the camera, which I thought I would find annoying, but I didn't. It kind of works in this, and it's all about relationships really, and how people and the problems that come up with it. Of course, as I say, with the fact that he'd been accused of having these affairs. It captivated me pretty quickly. What did you think, Ian?
I do like Rachel Weisz. I think she's superb, and she's very good in this. And yeah, you're right. There's a lot. I guess we associate that breaking the fourth wall with things like Fleabag in particular, don't we? You got John Slattery from Mad Men, plays her husband, her philandering husband. Yeah, this business about the kind of the morality or otherwise of college professors having affairs with students. It's interesting the take it gives on that, because obviously everyone's an adult and it's consensual, but there is a power dynamic there, of course. And I liked Leo Wooddall in One Day, and he's good in this. So, but I would say I kind of feel like it's aimed at women largely. It's almost like a bit of romantic fiction, but I think it's quite sort of high concept and well done. But because there's this sort of very dryly humorous, almost narration, all these kind of comments to camera from, in the book she's known as M, and in this she's just known as the protagonist, which I think is a bit weird. And it just give her a name, it doesn't matter. Because of that, I found it just I sort of one step removed from really caring about what was going on, because it all seemed so kind of glossy and stylish and ironic. But yeah, I mean, they're all good in it, I must say. But yeah, I just feel this is one perhaps that female viewers will get into more than male. I don't know. Perhaps I just get that feeling. But yeah, I mean, it's a real high quality cast, and it's done with a lot of style, and it will also make you laugh as well. But yeah, there's kind of a lot of fantasy sequences as well, where she imagines what it would be like to be with him. And yeah, because it starts with him, I don't know if that's a fantasy sequence or not, but he's sort of chained up in a chair while she's in the next room. You think, okay, where's this all leading? And then of course it flashes back, as everything does. Have a look. I think it could well be your cup of tea. Now, we've got to that stage, Hannah, where we find out what the hell you've been binge watching.
Well, of course, we talked about it last week in our pod, didn't we, Ian? The Lady. But I continued watching that. And that seems to be something that a lot of my friends are talking about as well. That seems to have worked really well. And it's, you keep watching it and it becomes, another captivating one. You're in, aren't you? And you've got to watch the whole lot. So, I've been binging that. How about you?
Yeah, we watched all of that, enjoyed it, despite, as we'd said, mixed reviews. I also burned all the way through the latest season of Drive to Survive in double quick time. I mean, it is so well done. It's absolutely brilliant. And there's some good, interesting stuff about Christian Horner in the latest series. It's so popular that and it's transformed the world of F1, hasn't it? What more can we say? It's good stuff. Now, we've just got time to look ahead to next week's offerings. So what's on the binge watch menu, Hannah?
Well, that's an interesting one because Nicole Kidman will lead a starry cast in Prime Video crime drama Scarpetta.
Lovely stuff. And David Morrissey, oh yes, and Eve Miles star in cat and mouse ITVX thriller Gone, about a teacher whose wife disappears. So we look forward to those and much, much more. But in the meantime, dear listeners,
Watching!